Good morning, everybody. And Seamus has left the room. How was everybody? Good morning and welcome to this morning's workshop. I have just been speaking to Seamus for the last 15 minutes, so he has just gone out and he's going to come back in again, and he'll be with us in a few minutes. So good morning to everybody. It's great to have people back, and I see a few familiar faces there as well. So it'd be great if everybody could pop into the chat, tell us where you're from around the country, and I'm starting a poll at the moment to just get an idea of where people are and what's your current level of stress. Really looking forward to today's presentation with Seamus, because it's a great way to finish the week and to come up with some great tips for coping and for just de-stressing in general. I know Seamus is really looking forward to this and has a great presentation in store for us today. So I see some people have some stress, which is really good. What I'm also going to do, and I've done it before on a few occasions, I'm going to share a link with everybody. And the link that I'm sharing is for an application called Padlet. And this is where you can write down your comments, observations, how you're feeling, and everything that you write on this is anonymous. So it's a really good tool to use, not just here in this type of webinar facility, but also in your working environment. Seamus, you're back with us. Just pop on your camera there. I'll let you get sorted. So Padlet link, I've just popped it into the chat there. If you click on that link, it will bring you to an external window where you can pop in all of your thoughts and unload and dump if you like to, no problem. And don't forget about the poll. Seamus, welcome back. I was telling everybody that we were chatting for ages before we went into the live room there.
No
but
problem.
we have a few people here in the room. So I see Breda and Deirdre, Claire, Elizabeth, Louise, Ray, Susan and John. Great to see you all this morning. We have quite a number of people on the call, so we'll just give everybody a couple of more minutes, maybe a few more minutes than usual, to join and see if we get Jessica. I see you've joined there as well. So I'm just bringing everyone's attention to the poll there, Seamus, while we're going to have chat. How are you this morning? All good?
I'm practicing my own skills this morning about what we're going to talk about as regards last minute hitches.
Like de-stressing.
I'm trying to remain calm and use my own what I will share later on. So no, it's good. It's been great, and I've been thanking for the opportunity as well for coming in and presenting today's session.
Oh, it's fantastic to have you here, Seamus. And I kind of take these things for granted now, because I'm so used to these webinars and little technical hitches and everything that it's like water off ducks back to me. I have to put myself into the shoes of our guest presenters, and it's probably not something that you're used to doing on a regular basis, so small things can go mad. Stu, I see you've come in to join us this morning. Good morning to you and welcome. We have a poll running at the moment. What are your current levels of stress? Some stress and high levels of stress, but manageable most of the time. So we're kind of dabbling in between the two of those, which is interesting.
Well, it's just good to get an idea, I guess, of who's on the call and what the spread is of different stressors. So as we'll see later on, some people react to different situations in different ways, and we're all individuals and we all have our own thresholds and different coping capacities and so on. So I'm not surprised to see that, I suppose,
Absolutely. We've now got 50-50. So we're 50-50 on some stress and high levels of stress.
Okay. Well, hopefully we can do something about that high level of stress on today's session. I guess that's what the idea is,
Absolutely. Probably in between the two of those myself now, to be honest. But I've also shared into the chat a link to Padlet, and if anybody wants to write down any thoughts or comments or just a little mind dump that might help relieve some of your stress, it's all anonymous. We don't know who's posting anything, and we'll just share it later on at the end of the session. So feel free to pop something in there. We're at 6 minutes past 10, so I think we'll carry on. So good morning, everybody. My name is Sorcha Finucane, and I'm the owner and founder of TrainedIn. We are absolutely delighted to be hosting the Taste for Success SkillNet bite-sized upskilling workshops. We are running 60 workshops between the 17th of August and the 18th of December. So 3 a week and fourth one every third week. And we are delighted to welcome Seamus Power from Powering Health here this morning. And I think it's very appropriate to deliver such a great topic on a Friday at the end of the week, which can help people ease into the weekend. Before we carry on, just a couple of little points for you. I'm going to share a link with you now into the chat again, which is for the Taste for Success SkillNet learner profile. And that is something that we need everybody to complete. So you can do it after we finish the workshop, but I'll pop the link in there as well. Also, we can't see you and we can't hear you. So please make use of Seamus's time this morning. Ask him as many questions as you can. If you want to share something with us, please feel free, and definitely use the Padlet tool there, and use the chat facility. We are going to let Seamus go through his presentation, and then we will take some questions and answers at the end. So Seamus is going to have a little chat with us, and then we'll go into the presentation at start. So Seamus, tell us, what are we going to be talking about today? I'm really interested.
Yeah, and just brief, I'm looking at the survey results as we begin. So, and again, it's interesting to see that 0% on no stress. So, I mean, that's expected. I think we need some level of stress to perform. So that's really what I'll be focusing on today, is the presence of stress in our lives. And it's an essential element of our lives to have some level of stress. But it's a matter of actually engaging and finding your unique ideal stress pivot point. So, you know, you're going to vary all the time, the amount of stress, depending on the situations that you're facing in your life. And as I mentioned very briefly earlier, we all have different levels of coping capacity or resilience based on our own experiences. And that is something I'm going to begin the session with, just the very unique nature of stressors and unique nature of each of our individual experiences and situations, and really helping people develop skills to cope with specific stressors that currently result in feelings of stress, and how you might better develop techniques and skills to help you lower your emotional response and cope better and develop healthier responses to those stressors, and help you perform better, feel better, and just overall be in a better place, I guess,
Yeah. And I suppose looking at those polls, like 55% some stress, 44% high stress, it would be interesting to know. Let me just start a new poll. And the second poll that we have is what aspect or aspects of your life would say is the primary driver of feelings of stress in your life currently. So I'm just putting that up there now, just to see kind of where we are. These are Seamus's polls as well. But I suppose, Seamus, it's not surprising, given the current climate that we're in, that people are feeling probably more stressed than usual.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll share a slide later on in the presentation from Eurofound, which is a working condition survey, which talks about the evolving evolution of stress in the workplace in particular. And this is pre-COVID-19. And Eurofound is running this survey every 5 years. So they're running it right now to be published in 2021 for the stressors that people are experiencing now compared to pre-COVID-19. So I'm really, really interested in seeing what shows up and where the trends are going related to exactly what's been happening in the last 6 months or so, because there was a definite trend of people experiencing increased stressors in the workplace. And now with everything that's going on in the last 6 months with COVID, I expect that's even going to be further a bigger challenge for businesses and individuals and businesses, but businesses are made up of individuals. So I expect to see some really, really insightful and very important findings from that Eurofound survey that will help steer businesses to figure out where are the key stress points. And that's something I will be talking about on our session today as well, looking at the wheel of wellness as the first indicator of where your hotspots may be when it comes to looking at stressors in your own life. So it's interesting to see again here. This will tie into something we'll discuss on the session later around aspects of your current lifestyle where you're feeling those hotspots or those pressure hotspots or those stress hotspots, I guess, you know.
Yeah, it's really interesting looking at the poll results coming up. If anybody feels like they like to share what the other is relating to, I see we have financial pressures is at 37%, which is quite high. And then we have workload, work relationships, health issues at 12%, and other at 25%. If anybody feels like they just like to share what the other is or any comments, you don't have to. I'm just we have an interactive whiteboard, and it's called Padlet, and it's anonymous. So I'll share the link with you again if you want to share anything on that. It's all anonymous, and we can review it at the end of the session. It's just, I suppose, jumping and sharing.
And I think it's important to point out as well, I think with COVID-19, the whole, we haven't called it specifically here on the survey, but the personal relationships as well, as people are working more from home, there might be a lot more pressure on personal relationships, where you're spending a lot more time in the home possibly than you did before. And I'm sure that could be part of the other category as well, where people are feeling, you know, with child relationships, partner relationships, and so on, being together in the house more often. Again, my experience is that people are finding that as being something they've got to adjust with, and probably will have to deal with going forward as well for the foreseeable future, I think, you know.
Yeah, there's a couple of comments coming on the whiteboard there now. One is, being a one-man band, I feel like I've no support in work. It's really tough. With the chaos of COVID, it is difficult relying on others with no clear communication or sense of clarity or direction. And then divorce and child mental health issues. So there's a lot of varying different.
And the beauty about what I'll cover today, Sorka, is that the techniques that we'll talk about today can be applied to any situation, basically. Yeah. So it's really generic, but very specific to your own individual situation, as the techniques can work for you, regardless of the source of the stressor, I guess. So that's the beauty, I hope, at least, of what people can take away from the call today and from the session today, is that they can apply techniques, regardless of whether it's work-related, relationship-related, kids-related, divorce-related, health-related. There are certain techniques you can use to help relieve the stressors that you might be feeling, I guess, you know.
Yeah, there's a lot of comments being posted on the whiteboard, so I'll let people go do that, and we can look at it later. Yeah, they're still coming on there, which is great.
I know, that really helps clear the discussion as well as we go.
Yeah,
yes, you know.
Yeah. Seamus, if you want to start, I know you're going to do a little talk before we go into your presentation, so I'll let you take the floor.
Yeah, I suppose just to get to, this has really been a great icebreaker, the surveys and so on, to understand, you know, where people are coming from who attended the session today. And I suppose the good way to begin was, I felt, was my own relationship with stress and where I've come from and how I've managed stressors in my life. And as I said right at the beginning, stress is a very normal thing, and everyone needs some level of stress to perform at their optimal level. And that's been my own experience in my own life as well. So very briefly, when I started working as a technician, a support engineer many years ago, it was common for me to feel a lot of stress because I was in situations where you had a large computer system, where you had an enterprise running on that was down, and you were sitting in a computer room, sweating it out and getting a lot of pressure, I'm often honestly feeling overwhelmed. And it's something in that situation I just learned to live with, but never really addressed appropriately, or, you know, for a period of 10 years, I'd say, working in one company in that situation. So it was I experienced stress in a very personal way in that situation. But for me, I had a breakthrough in how I managed my own stress when I moved to a new role in a new company. And I realized through working with an escalation team as a point of support for me, I was just taking too much on my own shoulders. And I learned how by sharing a problem and having an escalation point to people who are very calm, cool, and collected,
Yeah.
I could see, well, why am I getting flustered? Because I knew myself, I was in this pressure situation, wasn't making good decisions because I was feeling under pressure and feeling under stress. And then suddenly my breakthrough, like a bolt of lightning, when I worked with a team who demonstrated really calm, coolness, and coherence, I said, well, why can't I work like that? And again, that still sticks with me to this very day. And it was an escalation team, a third level escalation team, technical team in the US, who were really cool, calm, and collected. And I could see, that I wasn't any use to them if I was flustered or not asking the right questions or making the right decisions. And they really opened my eyes to how and what the power of remaining calm and remaining clear and remaining focused on at times in your life when you were really under a lot of stress and under a lot of pressure. So that's something that stuck with me that I applied to every aspect of my life since. And I often, still to this day, and that's probably close to 30 years or so ago, apply the skills I've learned then, that kind of wake-up call that I got through by remaining calm, by slowing down, keeping clear-headed, you make better decisions and you cope a lot better. And it's a virtuous cycle between maintaining that clarity, that calmness, and then being able to support others and deal with the situations that you're in a much more effective way, I guess. So that's been my personal journey. And any stresses, any challenging situations I've had in the past, I've really always come back to that fundamental point of remain calm, slow down, maintain clarity where at all possible. And it does take practice and it does take perseverance, but it does work and anyone can achieve it. And that's what I hope to talk about on today's session as well, is the steps that you can take if you're finding certain situations very stressful. There are things you can do to really maintain calm when it's most needed. And that's, I think, what a lot of people find, that it's the sense of overwhelm. It's the sense of I'm out of control, there's too much going on, and the weight of the world is on your shoulders. You can take steps to actually alleviate that through practice, through perseverance, and through hard work. And that's really something that we'll talk about on today's sessions and getting you started on that road, I guess.
Yeah, and overwhelm is one of the words that's actually used here amongst a lot of others on the digital whiteboard.
Yeah,
it's very interesting. Do you want to start your presentation, or do you want to look at this, Seamus, or do you want to?
No, I'll jump into the presentation. So I'm just sharing my screen at the moment. Can you see that?
I can indeed.
I'll just go into presentation mode. So let me know when it's good to go, Sorka.
Yeah, you're good to go, and I'll move your position on your camera if we're covering anything. So
Okay.
all good, Seamus, all good.
Okay, great. So the objective really today is really around what I've said already. It's really around creating improved awareness of the impact of stress on your health and performance. So it's really both health and performance. So we're talking really about performance already, but the very rationale behind Powering Health and the work I do in Powering Health is really around fostering improved immediate health benefits, but longer term health benefits as well, and the immediate performance benefits that I just talked about from my own experience of managing overwhelm. And again, it's to outline simple steps you can take to help you respond better to stressors in your life today, and that can have pretty immediate effects if you follow some of the steps that we'll go through today as well. So that's really what we want to cover. So I wanted to start first of all by looking at some of the benefits of managing better and developing better coping skills and developing better stress responses. So the first thing, and maybe not the most obvious thing, it improves your physical health. So as we'll see very shortly, we have a very fundamental or advanced alert system in our body that tells us and alerts us to when things are when we are in situations where, you know, we're finding stressful, regardless of what it is, it's the relationships, it's the workload, it's the financial pressures, whatever it is that people are the key stressors for people in their lives. So if we're not managing those stressors will, as we'll see in a second, keep us awake at night. We won't be able to sleep properly, and this has the knock-on effect of impacting our physical health and our ability just to perform and be at our best. So stress plays a huge role in our physical health, and if we can manage our stress better, it has pretty immediate knock-on effects of how we can actually better perform and feel better and just exercise better, eat better, sleep better. It just affects every aspect of our life if we're managing those stressors better. As I said already, it improves decision making. So if you're managing to managing to respond to those stressors better and not let and manage that sense of overwhelm that you might currently be feeling in certain situations, you are going to make better decisions. And I think this is really critical for business as well as for individuals. And as I mentioned earlier, you know, every business is made up of individuals. So if you have people who are making better decisions, imagine the impact that's going to have for your business in general as well, and for how people in your business, in your organization, are working together. So the less stress and the more engaged people are with each other and the better decisions that are being made, well, I think the knock-on effects of that and the benefits of that are pretty clear. And, you know, when we talk about overwhelm, we're talking about having an improved sense of control. And I think that's a common theme with stress, is that lack of control or the sense of feeling of overwhelm. So if you can actually diffuse some of those stressors and manage and develop better stress responses, you can actually diffuse that sense of overwhelm and that sense of being out of control and improve your self-esteem. And that, as I said, that level of confidence you have in your ability to manage specific situations that, you know, currently you may find very stressful. The feeling of satisfaction in managing those stressors, once you implement some of the techniques we'll talk about, there's a great sense of satisfaction and reinforcement of simple things you can do can help you repeat those things to maintain the benefits and so on going forward. Better quality sleep. So if we're less stressed and managing our stressors better, there's that virtuous cycle between sleeping better and then that busy thoughts at night that you may have associated with stressors or things that are going on in your life automatically tie into better sleep, less stress, better sleep. So a very, very tight relationship between sleep quality and our stressors. And finally, improve important relationships. And we kind of touched on this right at the beginning as well, around the relationships at work, but also our home relationships now. And that dynamic has changed with COVID-19, where we're spending more time possibly in the home situation. Maybe the kids have been around more often during the summer when they're off school, trying to get back to normal, manage new routines, set up new routines. And if you can manage your stressors and your responses to stressors better, especially in personal situations. So for example, if you're responding with more thought, with more clarity, and not just letting fly with the first thing that comes into your head, well, then other people are going to respond in a similar way. So personal conflicts have a habit of escalating very quickly. But if you can manage your response to be more temperate, you'll find that other people's responses are more tempered as well. And again, it's a virtuous cycle of the better you can respond, the more the more controlled and the less chance of a conflict escalating and getting out of control and, you know, leading to that sense of overwhelm, conflict, and associated stress as well. So they are some of the key benefits. Really affect all aspects of our lives associated with managing or developing better stress responses. I just briefly wanted to mention a little bit about the individual nature of stress as well. So from the very moment that we're born, we're born into an environment that shapes us, physically shapes us, mentally shapes us, and makes us the people that we are, and makes us our unique experiences and our unique perspectives on life. So as we go through every stage of our life, right from, as I said, the moment we're born, through the relationship with our parents, relationship with our siblings, if we've got them, our friends, colleagues, all these influences, all these factors really shape the people we become, the behaviors we develop. And this is a never-ending cycle from the moment we're born to the time we're 6 feet under. We're in this cycle of change, influence from others, from our environment, and it never ends, essentially. And this is where stress management and techniques to improve how you respond to stressors in your lives has the ability to help you shape and make changes how you manage and currently manage stressors in your life as well. So it's never too late. And as I said, I spent 10 years or so managing and trying to, feeling a lot of the time, honestly, it was common for me to have a sense of overwhelm in certain situations. And now I have the ability to be able to actually put that in better context and shape how I manage stressors in my life that other people can certainly do as well with practice and with perseverance. So, our individual journey, our experiences, our engagement with everyone around us really shapes us and makes us the people that we are, our talents, the challenges we have, our passions, the preferences we have, our health and our performance. So all these things are continually being influenced by our environment and by the people and the situations that we're in every day. And it's a never-ending cycle. And that's what makes it so unique for every individual around their own specific situations. We all have our own strengths, our own challenges, and then it's a matter of applying the skills that we'll talk about soon into those specific areas that you find most challenging and helping you deal with those situations in maybe a healthier way as well. So I mentioned earlier the research around the evolving stress problem, and this is based on data from the Eurofound and a European Working Conditions Survey. So going back to 1990, Eurofound had been running this on a 5-year cycle, and they'd be looking at working conditions, primarily physical working conditions, and most of the activities from a job safety and health and safety perspective has been on physical safety of the workplace. But in 2010, Eurofound included stress as a key part of the research that they wanted to carry out. And their definition of stress in that 2010 survey was around 2 questions that I've shared here. One was around, I experience stress in my work most of the time or always. That was one of the questions they asked on a sit-down survey with people who participated in the research. And in Ireland, this was just short of 1,000 employees. So it's a pretty significant study. And it's a pretty comprehensive and reliable mechanism to assess the current levels of stress in Irish businesses. And this is run right across Europe. So it's about 1,000 or so, just under 1,000 people who participated in this study in 2010 and in 2015 as well. And in previous years, it was more focused on the physical health and safety. And the second aspect of the survey questions was that they asked people around their reactions, stress reactions, and to report any sleep disturbance, fatigue, or anxiety as part of the survey question to assess the levels of stress that people are experiencing in the workplace. So the interesting point here is that, in 2010, you would say 8% is a reasonable number of people who, of those 1,000 people, so about 80 people or so, express or define, answered the questions that they were experiencing stress most of the time or always, and were experiencing at least one of the stress reaction questions. So they were either experiencing sleep disturbance, fatigue, or anxiety. Not all 3, just one of those 3. But by 2015, when they ran the survey again, that had over doubled in the Irish workforce. And that was an alarming increase in a very short period of time. And I expect that is going to be north of 26, 27, 28% next year. And again, as we mentioned earlier, I expect that COVID is going to have a significant impact on the mix of stressors that people are experiencing. But I think the trend is going to go in a a worse direction, if you want to put it in those terms, going forward. And this has implications not just for individuals, but also for businesses, because it certainly shifts the focus from the workplace and the health and safety in the workplace, from a focus on physical health and safety to a focus on an obligation on employers to offer a safe, emotional safe environment as well for the workplace. So you might have a perfectly safe physical work environment, but you might find that there, with the increasing levels of stress, that the emotional stressors on people is pushing us towards a situation where you may have legislative obligations on employers to look at how stress is becoming a health and safety issue in the workplace. And I think that's something that's going to become a bigger issue for employers in the next couple of years. And it's probably going to be accelerated through what we're seeing through COVID and the influence of COVID in the additional stressors that people are coping with, whether it's work-related or, you know, the other things that we talked about earlier around the personal relationships in the home, relationships with kids, the financial pressures and so on that may come as a result of the impact of COVID and the changes many of us have had to make associated with COVID. So that just gives you a picture, I guess, of, you know, stress is becoming a more significant problem, certainly over the last 10 years, and I can see that continuing to be a problem for us unless we can intervene and take some action. And really the next part of the session is around what we can do to help ourselves better cope with some of these stressors that we're seeing, the various mix of different stressors. So this may be an interesting starting point for many people, just to sit down, reflect and think about your aspects and important aspects of your life. So the Wheel of Wellness is a tool that's pretty broadly used. I'm sure some people on the call on the session today will have seen the Wheel of Wellness before, may have used the Wheel of Wellness. If it's your first time, I think it's a very effective tool to help you assess where your priority areas for stress attention might be right now. So for example, if you look at the 7 categories we've got here around social, physical, environmental, financial, occupational, spiritual and emotional, they tie in very nicely to some of the things and themes we saw coming up on the survey earlier. And it's a simple tool and a way of assessing with some questions. There's definitions around each of these segments that if I had more time, I'd love to go into the detail of it, but there is statements associated with each of the segments, and you can assess, reading those statements, where it is that you might be as regards better balanced or under some stress associated with each of these individual segments. So for example, when you've read all those statements and make your personal assessment for how well balanced or how stressful you find each of these particular segments, you might find that occupational, for example, is something that's you find very stressful right now. You're in a job that you find very, very difficult, very stressful, maybe not very fulfilling. So you would mark that with a line closer to the center of the wheel. If you're in a situation where you're feeling very, for example, very physically healthy and feeling in a good place physically, you would mark that line closer to the outside of the wheel. So for each segment, you can very quickly get a starting point or a focal point for you to begin to actually think about where are your primary life stressors, and then think about, once you've got that at that level, you can then think about, well, what are the specifics that are within that particular segment that might be the root cause of why I'm feeling some of those stressors. So for example, if you marked occupational as being, you know, your key clear area of opportunity where you have the most stresses in your life, you might actually then begin to drill into that and to ask yourself, well, why is it that I'm feeling that way about my job? Is it, you know, and what could I begin to do to change some of the things associated with that? And in a very similar way, I know finance came up as one of the key topics. So again, the financial pressures are one of the things that are causing you to be awake at night and to cause you increased levels of stress. Then this tool will help you at least hone in and begin to drill down on specifics around those stressors. And again, in a minute, we'll look at techniques to help you put those stressors in context and break them into smaller chunks, so they may become less of a stressor for you, and you come up with a plan to develop a plan to deal with those stressors once you can identify specifically where they primarily reside, I guess. Okay, so again, that could be very useful too. And if you want to learn more about that, feel free to give me a shout afterwards. And that's a very, very quick, high-level view of a starting point to locate key pressure points in your life right now. As I mentioned earlier, we have an advanced inbuilt protection mechanisms to alert us when we're feeling stress. So, you know, when you're feeling financial pressure, when you're feeling that sense of overwhelm, it's coming from a physiological signal in your body. It's your body telling you, you know, you've got a stressor, and you should really heed that warning sign. But what happens a lot of the time is, you know, that we might become aware of the stressor. We could be getting sweaty palms. We might get a headache. We feel this gut in our tummy. We feel this sense of overwhelm. Whatever the indicator is, it is telling you information. It's telling you that you really should do something. But what unfortunately, a lot of the time, you know, even though we notice these signs, we know we're feeling this sense of stress and overwhelm, what we sometimes don't do is act on that, and we just say, it's probably only a temporary thing, it'll be fine. And we develop all sorts of excuses with the logic part of our brain, the front part of our brain up here, that tells us, you know, it's okay, it'll be fine. I know I'm busy, it's a busy period, whatever it is, and I'll get through it and it'll be fine. But what happens is we generally end up having these stress warning signs recurring more frequently, possibly. And that is really the time where you should take time to slow down, reflect on what you're doing, drive, as I've mentioned here, look at how you can become more self-aware. And it's not just about becoming more self-aware, but acting as well on the awareness of when you feel these stressors. So when you feel the overwhelm, what is it that you can do to actually diffuse that sense of overwhelm and to help you respond with more clarity, with more coherence as well as you take it on? So it's a matter of trying to disrupt old habits. So if you're in the habit of being in a role, maybe like I was myself, in a role, in a job, you come to accept this is just part of the job. I just accept it. Overwhelm and stress, I've got to live with it. No one should have to live with that level of stress or overwhelm. I think that's the key point out of today's session, is that if you are finding it difficult and you're finding that you're in a stressful situation more often than you used to be, or even if you're not, and you're finding it that the stress is becoming an issue for you, there are things you can do to help yourself. And it begins with self-awareness and with noticing those warning signs. But the next important step is not good enough just to notice. You've got to act on those and heed those warning signs and do something that is going to help you diffuse the stress and reduce the overwhelm. And that's where it comes to disrupting old habits, for example. So again, we'll look at that in the next slide around what are some of the techniques you can use to have an immediate response at helping you to slow down and just respond better and create a new normal for yourself. And there's an analogy I sometimes use about the rev counter in a car. So if you find, for example, that you're under a lot of stress and it's becoming a regular theme or pattern for you, that you're feeling a lot of stress, you're feeling a lot of overwhelm, it sometimes feels like you're on the high revs all the time. And if you look at the rev counter in the car, and if you put the boot down, by design, the car is meant to go at high revs. That's why there's a high rev indicator there. But if you stay in that high rev zone, you know what's going to happen to the engine of the car. It's going to explode and it's going to blow up. And that's what's going to happen with you if you don't manage to actually come down off the level of stress response that your body is reporting to you. So if you stay in that red zone, one thing is going to happen, and you're really going to have the type of issues we talked about earlier around the sleep quality issues, the health related issues that are going to kick in. It's going to have implications for you unless you can bring down that ref counter to a place where it's designed to operate from. So by all means, it's good to get to revs, get to high revs. We're designed to operate at high revs, but only for a short period of time, and then get back down to your normal run rate as quickly as possible and stay in that run rate, or an area where you are at a certain level of stress that you can perform well, but you're not in the red zone where you're putting yourself at risk of ill health and poor performance. So that goes back to our first slide today, which was the individual threshold. So the Wheel of Wellness will help you find a particular segment in your life where you may want to actually focus on getting better balance on the stressors that you're experiencing there. And then it's a matter of finding your unique balance within that segment of where your optimal performance zone is. So, you know, your zone could be at 3,000 revs, it could be at 4,000 revs. It's going to vary from person to person, depending on their own experience and so on. So that's why each of us is on our own individual and unique journey. Each of us will find our own space and our own comfort and our own space to be comfortable operating in that space. And that comes with practice, and it comes with time, and it comes with perseverance, and it comes with just life experience. And that is what life is really about, is overcoming challenges and then putting yourself in a place to be able to deal with new challenges as they arise. So one of the things that people I work with, some of the people I work with, find very, very useful is the whole flattening the curve model. And this came to me obviously as part of when COVID came. So, you know, very early days, this was the model the health services were using to actually help the health services manage and cope with the influx of COVID-19 cases. So it was a matter of buying time, essentially. So of heeding and acting in the health services to actually delay the impact of COVID on the health services and on the health services capacity. So I've really leveraged this model as an example of how you can use a similar model to help you heed and act on your stress indicators. So we'll go into this in more detail now, just to help you and steer you through. And it may be a good visual model to help you begin to put your stressors in context and help you begin to think about how you might be able to use this model as a mechanism to help you better manage your specific priority stressors as well. And it begins with coping capacity. So again, as I mentioned earlier, each of us has a very unique individual coping capacity, depending on our own life experiences, the people we've been around, the challenges we've overcome. And coping capacity is built up over time. You know, you could call it resilience as well, but it's built up over time. Our experiences, we could have very challenging things that we've overcome that have made us very resilient people. There's other new challenges maybe that we come across all the time that it's going to change and adjust our coping capacity all continuously and forever. And there's longer term influences on our capacity, but there's also very short term things can have a significant impact on our ability to cope. For example, if you have a poor night's sleep, your ability and resilience levels to deal with the conflict may be much lower than if you had a very good night's sleep. And so our coping capacity varies across individuals, but it varies within individuals from day to day, from week to week, and from month to month. And it's a moving feast essentially. But we can put ourselves in a position to have a level of resilience and develop a coping capacity to put ourselves in a position to better manage our stressors on an ongoing basis, and that's what we'll talk about now. So if you've got an event trigger, any event trigger, whether it's a financial, a stress-related, work-related issue, it could be a personal relationship issue, it could be a work deadline, whatever the event trigger is that results in you feeling some levels of stress, oftentimes, and again, my own experience going back to when I began working in those high pressure situations, you get into this frazzle zone very, very quickly. And that was my experience. So again, the pressure comes on, you get into frazzle, your mind freezes a little bit, and you're not making good decisions. And it just really limits your ability to perform at your best. And you're beyond your coping capacity, and this is where the sense of overwhelm kicks in. But what if you could reduce that and buy yourself some time to manage a healthy response, and if not avoid, or if not eliminate the frazzle, at least significantly reduce that frazzle when that event trigger arises. So it's really around interrupting and adjust your normal response. So rather than just going into automatic frazzle mode when a specific stressor hits you, you might find it useful to buy yourself some time, essentially. And again, the next slide will talk about the techniques and the mechanism you might find useful to slow down, give yourself that time to interrupt the frazzle and adjust and create a new normal response. And that will get you to a dazzle performance situation with practice, with perseverance, and with time. So that's really what the model here is designed to help you achieve, is to move from that automatic frazzle into slowing down, adjusting, developing new response in a specific situation, and then dazzling in that situation. And again, the hard work goes into that first part. So how is it you can achieve managing, first of all, to notice and heeding the warning signs and interrupting? So that's one part of the task. And then the second part of the task is actually developing an alternative or new response that will diffuse the frazzle that you might have experienced before. And that takes time, it takes perseverance, and it's an iterative process. But with repeated usage of that newly adjusted response, you can actually manage to reduce the frazzle and reduce the impact of the situation, regardless of what that situation is. Going back to my own example, the frazzle can be reduced by talking to an escalation team and not taking all the problems on myself, but talking to someone else to share the problem. And that may sound very obvious, a very simple thing. There's several other different strategies you can use in your own life. Maybe there's a very important person or a person with the skills at work that you could go to share a problem that would be very beneficial for you. It could be slowing down and thinking through a better response, and just giving yourself even a fraction of a second longer than having a knee-jerk response to a particular problem. So it's really around trying to slow down and to see what relieves that stressor for you. And then once you notice that that's effective, reusing that strategy in that situation. And then you can develop that, or you can develop other strategies for other stressful situations that you may find. But what I would recommend is, for your primary stressor right now, develop and test 1 or 2, 3 strategies that you will do the next time you feel that stressor, as a mechanism to help you reduce the frazzle and give yourself more time to better manage that stressor. And then find what works best and continually use and repeat that in that situation as you go forward. But it does take perseverance. It does take effort to notice, interrupt, and respond differently. And that is a big challenge for many of us. But over time, you can, with that repeated usage of your newly adjusted response, you can actually raise and influence your coping capacity. So to say, knock that particular stressor on the head, but this is a mechanism, and we all have new stressors that are going to rise right throughout our lives. But it's a model that you can use repeatedly for different stressors as they arise, depending on what they are. So again, it might be interesting later on just to get people's feedback on, is this a model that you could see yourself using in your life for one particular stressor to help you adjust, develop a new normal response, and then repeatedly use that and assess that as a mechanism to help you better respond in that situation, and then get confidence in using it for other situations then as well. So it's a pretty generic model that can be used and repeatedly used for any situation that you may find yourself in, okay? So what I wanted to do in the next couple of minutes, are we good for time, Sorka?
You are at, you've 10 minutes, Seamus.
Okay, great. No,
Yeah.
that's perfect. So what I wanted to do now was do something practical. One of the organizations I've been working with and partnering with is an organization called HeartMath, and they have played a key part in helping me in my own situation in developing mechanisms to better respond to stressors in my own life that clients of mine have found really useful as well. So they developed something called heart focused breathing. Now it's a meditation mechanism, but for me it's a simplified meditation mechanism, and it's based on our heart rate variability. So heart rate variability is a key metric or measure of how coherent or how well we are performing. Again, it's a Bluetooth device that you can use with the meditation mechanism that we use here in a couple of seconds. But it helps you provide biofeedback from your heart rate and the variation in your heart rate around helping you respond better and understand when you're responding better to stressors in your life. So, for example, your heart rate variability will have a very jagged signal when you are under stress. And when you begin to calm down and use heart-focused breathing, you can begin to notice yourself in your clarity of thought, the sense of overwhelm dropping, but it also shows up in the heart rate variability signal in the HeartMath technology that's being used around how we measure heart rate variability as a mechanism to reinforce the feelings of increased calm, coherence, and clarity. So what I wanted to do in the next 3 or 4 minutes was go through and take time to do a 3-minute slow and deliberate rhythmic breathing exercise. So if you're good for that now, what I'd invite you to do is sit straight in your chair, in your typical, maybe if you've done meditation before, it'd be very similar to planting both your feet solidly on the ground, sitting upright. And if you want to put your hands across your chest, if you find that useful to help you focus, and really it's all around slowing down and being more coherent, giving yourself time and space. Because when I look at that previous diagram we've just looked at around the shifting from frazzle to dazzle, slowing down and becoming aware of the stressor and slowing down before you respond is a key part of what this technique will help you do. So in that stressful situation, taking 2 or 3 slow, deeper than normal breaths is a great way of diffusing stress in an instant. And that's a technique you can use as a mechanism to buy yourself some time in the heat of the moment when you're feeling that stressor. And the 3 minutes of heart-focused breathing that we will do now in a couple of seconds is something you can practice to help you be more coherent and be in a position where you can become more self-aware and better respond to stressors when they arise during the day. So if you do 3 or 4 minutes, up to 10 minutes if you wish, every day, if you find there's benefit in doing, and taking the time to do slow, deliberate, heart-focused breathing, you may find this as a great way of setting you up to actually deal better with those stressors when you feel them arise and developing those alternative or adjusted responses now that you have a level of coherence and setting your body up to respond in a better way than you might have before. So I would invite you now to just sit in a very comfortable position. Take time in the next 10, 15 seconds just to take 2 or 3 long, slow, deeper than normal breaths. I'll just demonstrate that for 2 or 3 breaths right now before we go into the exercise. So about 5 seconds in, full inhale of the lungs. Maybe 5 seconds out, full exhale, deeper than normal, very relaxed. And imagine the breathing through chest and heart area. So if you find that you want to put your hands around your heart area to help you focus with those longer than normal breaths, see if that works for you as well. So we'll do that for 3 minutes now. Long, slow, deep breaths. Okay, so I hope you found that easy and simple process. And even doing 10 seconds of a similar process to that, slow, deliberate, rhythmic breath, when you notice signs of your stressor coming on, whether it's the headache, the migraine, that gut feeling, even 10 seconds of slowing down, deeper than normal breaths, even five of those breaths, you'll find yourself in a position to put things in better context and slow down and make better decisions. Even that simple exercise of less than half a minute will help you respond better to stressors. I can almost guarantee that you will feel benefit from doing that the next time you feel a sense of overwhelm. And that could become your first stepping stone to your newly adjusted behavior, for example. Okay. So again, key takeaways really is around practice noticing your stress indicators. So I think most of us notice when we're feeling stressed, we notice when we feel overwhelmed, and just become more attuned to those feelings of stress. But the critical point is don't ignore those warning signs. When you're in that red zone, endeavor to get back down to your optimal performance zone as quickly as possible. And some of the techniques I just described could be a great way for you to move from the red back down very quickly when you notice those signs of stress. So take steps to slow down once you notice those indicators. Practice going easy on yourself, something I haven't mentioned so much so far through today's short session, but we beat ourselves up so much. So practice just being easy on yourself, and with the clarity and with slowing down, take time to treat yourself as you would soothe others who might be suffering from stress or overwhelm as well. So if you have a friend of yours, what's the first thing you might say to them? You'd say to them, what's wrong? Calm down, try and put things in perspective and context, and try having that similar conversation with yourself. And that's really what I mean by going easy on yourself. Try and set a context of, well, things could be worse. Why am I finding this so stressful? Why is this becoming an issue for me? And just even taking yourself outside of your own body almost, to ask yourself some of those questions that you would ask to a friend of yours or a family member who is noticeably, not suffering the signs, or maybe feeling some levels of stress, or expressed feelings of stress to you. Your response to them really should be your response to yourself as well when you feel similar feelings of stress or discomfort. So really, really be kind to yourself. Use your support network. Again, another key mechanism. We take so much on our own shoulders so often. So sharing a problem is having a problem. And I think they're very, very true words. So if you've got a strong support network, or even if you don't, if there's someone who you can identify at work who may have a set of skills that could be very useful for you in helping you resolve a particular problem, maybe it's to do with an Excel sheet or some technology that you're having trouble with that's causing you stress, just reaching out for help in a situation is a very effective way for helping you to diffuse that feeling of overwhelm or stress. So there's always someone there to help you support and share and talk through a problem if and when that need arises. So again, don't be afraid to unburden and share your problem and seek support and help from those around you. Again, these are key mechanisms that you can do very, very quickly and very easily that have an immediate effect on helping you move from that red zone of feeling overwhelmed very quickly down to a situation where you can see things more clearly and in a better context. And again, importantly, celebrate intervening on those situations. So if you successfully manage to intervene on a situation that previously caused you a lot of stress, celebrate that fact and use it as motivation to repeat that newly adjusted behavior we talked about as well, to reinforce you managing and developing and disrupting the old habits you might have of getting in a certain situation causing you a certain level of stress. Use that as a mechanism to reinforce that this actually works for you in that situation, and it's something you can apply in any situation in your life going forward. The same as I have done really in that breakthrough I had 30 odd years ago around how I could apply staying calm, coherent, and working with a strong and solid support network. That was one of my significant breakthroughs to help me manage stressors in my life. And I'm sure every one of us on the call today has a solution there ready, waiting for us to implement to help us better manage our specific hotspots and our specific stressors as well. So I wish you every luck in developing and heeding your responses, developing your adjusted responses, and having success in better managing those stressors as well that are part of your life today, that don't need to be, that you can actually manage and reduce and develop mechanisms to help you better manage them in a more coherent, structured, and healthier way, I guess. So with that, I guess we're at the end, Sorka, and hopefully we're on time as well.
Hi, Seamus. I'll just stop your screen, or if you can stop your screen share.
Yeah, no problem. And we're just going to Q&A then at this stage.
Yeah, we're slightly over time, so I know people might drop off. But if anyone has any questions for Seamus, please pop them into the chat there. I know that you got some thanks from Anne and Elaine and Elizabeth there, Seamus. Okay. Maybe I'll just quickly share this Padlet so you can see that there was quite a few comments on it around varying different areas. But I suppose the key takeaways that you put up there were very helpful for people, and not being hard on yourself.
Yeah.
Everybody kind of in the same boat, and look for supports. Any of you who have lost your jobs and are now job seeking, Taste Your Success SkillNet are there to assist and support you in any training that you need to upskill. So please contact Breda at info@tasteyoursuccess.ie. Or if anybody's interested in booking Seamus and doing something like this similar for your own teams, if you pop me an email, or again email Breda at info@tasteyoursuccess.ie. I don't have any questions coming in there, Seamus. So there, everyone, thanks and thank you. So we might. Do you have any final words that you'd like to sign?
Yeah, I mean, I think I summed it up there. I was really eager at the end to bring it all together with some practical tips and advice. And I think, the key takeaways there were the key things that are simple and people can actually identify and use in a very simple, tangible way. So I think that for me was really the wrap up. And I know we're over time as well. So if you can focus on maybe even one or two of those and make those real in your life in specific situations, I think that for me was the key point, I guess,
Yeah, I see Elaine has just put a comment in there that she's lucky enough to be still working, so happy to provide intros or whatever I can to help anyone who might need it. That's a very nice offer from you, Elaine. And I'm sure if you maybe connect with me on LinkedIn, then people will find you there as one of my connections. Great, says Elaine. Louise, I'm teaching yoga online through Zoom. If anyone would like details, let me know. Great, Louise. That sounds fantastic. So I think we'll leave it there for now. Seamus, thank you so much for your time. It's really insightful, and I think the meditation really just ended the session so well, where people are now probably ready to take on the rest of their day and their weekend. And we shall hopefully see everybody again on some of the webinars coming up next week. If anybody would like further information, pop me an email at circa@trainedin.ie, and have a fantastic weekend and a lovely day. And Seamus, thank you again.
Yeah, thanks so much. See you, everyone. Good luck, everyone.
Take care. Look, bye.